So today I'm going to explain how I made this pen. And this pen has deer antler and buckeye burl with a rifle clip, and it's showcased in a black titanium trim. It's just a simple slimline pen, but there's some pretty incredible things that we can do with this material. Without further ado, let's get this underway. So, to start with, I have a piece of buckeye burl, and buckeye burl is a wood that's a hardwood, despite it being incredibly soft and difficult for turners to work with. It comes from Eastern America and California. And then here, I have a couple sample pieces of deer antler. So these are cuts-offs from an antler where a deer had died. This material here is the same antler that's turned and sealed with CA. There's quite a substantial contrast, but with proper working technique and polishing, you can turn antler into something great. Now, to get a pen out of something like this, the first thing that you do is you take one of the blanks and you're going to cut it to the dimensional size that you need for your kit. So here, I have a pen turner's mandrel, and that I'm going to show you how you would mount a blank. Now, these blanks aren't drilled, but we're just going to pretend that they are. So this is a brass tube, and inside this pen, there are two brass tubes of identical size that fit the kit. Now, you would take either a drill press or a drill on your lathe, and you would place your wood or your material object inside a chuck, making sure it's square, and then you would proceed to drill through the material. Once there's a hole inside of the material, you're going to stick the tube inside of the material for a test fit. This will go through completely, and you'll be able to see on both sides there should be a solid hole, and the piece of material will line up flush with the tube. After which, you pull the tube out, and you're going to apply a CA glue finish around the outside of the tube, and you're going to have to work quickly because the CA will cure in seconds. You stick the tube inside of the wood, making sure that it fits flush, and then you take a bottle of accelerator and you spray the outside of both of the materials. You set the blank aside for a moment to dry, and then you work on the second part of your project. So in this case, that would be the piece of antler that I have. So I would, because antler is not square, I would go to my bandsaw and I would cut the piece of antler off on all four sides to try to get it as close as I could to square. From there, I would place it inside my lathe or drill press, and I would proceed to drill a hole that matches the same diameter as the brass tube. And just like with the buckeye burl that we did earlier, we're going to do a tube that has a dry fit to make sure that the piece fits. Once we've confirmed that it fits inside, we're going to coat the outside of the tube with a CA glue, and working quickly, we're going to slide it inside of the material. Spray accelerator on both sides once you're sure that the fit, and then set it aside for the piece to dry. Now we're going to go to my workshop, and I'm going to explain how the turning process works. Now that I showed you guys how the turning process works, we're going to go through and we're going to see the sanding process. Now that we've finished sanding, I'm going to show you how the polishing process works. This is where we're applying a CA finish to get this beautiful sheen on the outside of the material, but also seal it so that it's completely waterproof and it will withstand the elements and the test of time as you use it in your daily life. So we talked earlier about the Buckeye burl and antler pen. This is what you saw the footage. We're past the finishing stage, and this pen's already assembled. So I have a separate pen that I turned ahead of time, and I'm going to show you live what it looks like to assemble a finish. All right, so now we're going to talk about the kit parts. Here, this is called the nib. Here's kind of a close-up of that kit part. It's where the point of the pen that has the ink comes out. This next part is called the center band. It goes in between the two pieces. This is called the transmission, and you insert the ink refill into the end of it, like so, and you twist it, and then when it's inside the action, the pen twists and the ink end comes in and out. The final part is the cap, as you can see here, and then there's the clip. There's a couple variations on the clips. There's one that has a deer's head. This is one that has a bass. This is one that has a music clef. This is one that has a black ornamental line. And this is one that has a rifle. So first you're going to get your kit parts out. And in this case, I decided to include a custom rifle clip because, you know, you can. So the first thing you want to do is you want to dry fit your pieces and make sure that you're lining the parts up correctly. With a slim line, both the top and bottom barrel are exactly identical and the same for bushing height. So it's all your personal preference of what you think would look the best. In this case, it looks like this way would have the best fit. So taking your pen press, you're going to place your nib on the soft plastic so as not to damage the finish, and then you're going to have your piece of wood backed up against the steel plate, and you're going to gently press. Sometimes when you press, you're going to have a little bit of a misfit. That's totally fine. Don't press too hard or you might crack your pen. All you have to do is adjust the angle at which you're pressing against, and your part will gradually slide into place. Just like that. So now we're going to put the cap top on top of this rifle clip and press it together. Don't forget to add the block on the end that gives you the proper distance for pressing your parts together. Once you have the nib, you just slide the ink refill in, which it appears I don't have included in this kit. But normally, you would put the ink refill in, and then you're going to snap the center band on, and you press this parts together, and you would have your finished pen. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about what some of the different pens that I've made look like, some of the different kits, and each of the materials that were used. This first pen is an antique copper Phoenix kit that features Swarovski crystals in both the tail feather of the Phoenix as well as on top. As we can see from this kit in Penn State Industries, there's a beautiful carving and rendering of a phoenix flying and rising out of the copper on both sides. To showcase this, I decided to have a gray and smoky resin ash with a symbolized rose growing out of the ashes, because a phoenix is a symbol of rebirth, as well as a featured edge of walnut bark just for some wood and clarity. So as you can see, this is what that pen looks like. Now another pen, this is an Icon pen kit, and with a simple plastic Bic pen, you'll have the exact same result, except with these, you just snap out your ink refill of your cheap plastic pen, and you get one of these nice pens. You slide it inside of the pen, you press it closed, and then you have an excellent high quality pen that will showcase your Bic round stick refill. This one is gunmetal, and it showcases a Spectraply wood. This one is also sealed with a CA finish. This here is a slimline pen, and I did a couple of adjustable trims to it while I was turning the barrel, and it is featured in a spalted maple that honeybees nested in, and the larvae chewed holes throughout the wood. I sealed it with a gentle wood sealer, and I used very light cuts and passes to showcase this beautiful and natural wood grain. It's accented by gold trim. This pen here is quite remarkable in the fact that it features exclusive Lego pieces and resin. To make something like this was not a simple undertaking. The first thing that I had to do was take Lego pieces and fill them with resin to make them one full-size composite that had no air bubbles. As you can see, in this top spot here, there were a couple places that required filling. However, if you work through the effort and you fully cast this and take light cuts, you can have an incredible work of art that showcases both Lego pieces as well as this gold pen kit featured in a cigar pen. This pen here is spalted maple, and it's a rollerball pen that has a cap that posts on top and on the bottom of the pen. And each one of the colored inlays that you see here is an individual piece of veneer that has been glued and then cut and then glued and then cut. Each barrel has 4 pieces of 4 different colors for a total of 8 pieces throughout this pen. Here is a Cortona pen that has both a twist, action, and a stylus. It features hickory and a gold and white resin that sealed the hole where a knot would have broken through. For a final sealing and full coat, I covered this with a few coats of CA and gave it a high luster polish at 12,000 grit to make for a remarkable showpiece that also has high functionality as a stylus or as a writing pen. Finally, this is a Majestic Junior high class 22 karat gold and rhodium kit. It is a fountain pen that has both a loadable cartridge function as well as an inkwell draw. So if you like the old style, you can simply place your pen inside, pull the cartridge out, and twist the action to draw ink into the well. I don't have any ink here, but you can play along with me and pretend that we just had it filled with ink. Then you just insert your pen back inside of the action, and you're ready for the most incredible writing experience you've ever had. So earlier we talked about the Lego pen. I want to explain a little bit about how this pen was actually made. So I talked about making the Legos into a composite, but what I didn't explain is how to make the composite material itself that normally would be represented by wood into something like this. So what you're going to do, you're going to take your Lego blocks and you're going to place them inside of a mold, and then you're going to mix up your favorite resin. I prefer to use liquid diamonds or Luminite. They're both readily available at craft stores, or you can purchase it on Amazon. Give it a good solid mix for 3 to 5 minutes, after which you're going to pour your resin with the composite blocks inside of the mold. Now the directions of the resin say not to pour more than a 1/2 inch, but most pen turners will always end up pouring more than that. As long as you use a good silicone mold, you will be fine. The reason why you shouldn't ever pour more than a 1/2 inch is because of the thermal reaction that occurs when the resin cures. If it gets too hot, it could burn yourself or it could burn your project. But silicone dissipates heat, so I've never had a problem with it. At this moment, I'm going to add the blank to the pressure pot now to remove all of the air bubbles. The lid gets put on, and we seal all of the screws on the pot. Now we're going to add pressure to the pot, so I'm going to attach the hose fixture to it. It's going to start pressurizing, as you see on the gauge here, shortly. This one you don't ever want to exceed 60 pounds per square inch of pressure. So we're at about 40 right now. There's 50. I usually cut it right about here. I'll also turn my compressor off. And then you just leave that sit for 12 to 24 hours to cure. After you pour your resin inside of your blank, with Legos, normally there's air pockets in them, but because you filled them and you've made them as one individual composite, they will have enough weight and density to stay embedded within the resin. You can always take a popsicle stick or a small silicone object that you're not concerned or can break the resin off if it dries, and gently adjust the blocks for placement, for color. When you turn an object, you're going to have a square blank like this, but normally it would be made of a composite. As you're turning, you're creating a radius on the end of the blank, and that's going to give you a round. Once you have that round, that will change the visual image of your material. So if you look at this pen here, you can see that there's different aspects of the Lego block that you don't normally see in Legos. That's because when this was cut with a micro tool, you've shaved off tiny amounts of the plastic to the point where it no longer exists. So when you place your items embedded in resin, keep in mind that you're drilling a hole that's going to hold all of your pen parts, and the only thing that's going to be showcased in your material is the 1/8 to 1/16 of an inch that's around that entire tube. So in order to get that material to be showcased properly, you have to make sure that it fits in where you've drilled, and that looking around on a circular end, you're going to see the different pieces showcased when you drill through your blank. Once you glue your tube in, take a look at your material on your end, both sides, and you're going to see all of the different pieces inside. And then you know, once you've turned, that you've been able to ultimately capture the artistic image that you're looking to portray. Now, no pen is ever going to turn out the same. I could make an identical Lego pen to this and place the blocks in almost the same spot, and the pen will still turn out slightly different. All right, so I've talked to you guys about how I made the pens and the process. Now I'm going to talk to you a bit about how I got started in this. So when I was 14 years old, I was, like every other kid, looking for a good opportunity to make a Father's Day gift. And my pastor of my church at the time said, hey, I turn pens. Why don't you come over to my house for the weekend and we can make a pen for your dad for Father's Day? I did that, and I didn't touch the lathe for a few years after I had made that Father's Day pen. I had a great time doing it, but it never really occurred to me to do it regularly as a hobby. He later found out that he was allergic to the glue that he would use to finish the pens, and thus his entire business model, as well as his turning equipment, all had to be gotten rid of and sold. Now, it worked out for me that he was moving about the same time that I was leaving for school. So he had discussed with me and said, hey, if you're looking to raise money for your schooling, a great thing to do would be to turn pens, which I also happened to see someone else did that in Wood Magazine. So for a discounted price, he sold me the lathe, the equipment, and a number of materials to get me started. From there, I had a nonprofit business for 2 years that was called Turning for Tuition. You can look at my former website, turningfortuition.com, and you can see a showcase of some of the different things I did. My full intention was to raise enough money to finish my degree. Now, I did raise a good amount of money, but because I found a job in some of the downtime when life had happened, I didn't end up going back to school. Fast forward now, a few years down the road, all of my student loan debt is completely paid off in thanks to some of my turning as well as the hard work that I've done at my job. From there, I decided I would really like to start a business. So I present to you Keller's Turncraft. You can find us on Facebook. That is spelled KellerTurncraft. And I will have my new website posted up soon, but I have a showcase of different pens, razor handles, and various turning projects that I've made.